We're in the middle of the halachos of Mishloach Monos, right? That's right. We started on Thursday the halachas of exactly what the idea of Mishloach Monos is, the two reasons, and common nafkaminas that apply. What I want to continue now is into what exactly does one have to give in order to be Yaitz the mitzvah. What exactly is the obligation of Shlach Monos in order to be Yaitz? So first of all, this we can know very clearly from the Gemara and from the Megillah itself, Mishloach Monos ish lereyehu, which basically means to send monos, portions, man to his friend. So it would come out that really the Yikei Adin, if you want to be Yaitz the obligation, which would be negay, by the way, for us in Yerushalayim, because we're going to speak about it, I think on Tuesday we're going to speak about this, Be'ez Hashem, about Purim Meshulish, and the different shittas of when to give a Shlach Monos, and there are shittas to give on a few days. So how many do you have to give on each day? Can you imagine whatever you give on a normal Purim you have to give twice? No. The question is, what I wanted to be Yaitza, so really all I have to give is one person, two items. Then I am Yaitza the mitzvah of Mishloach Monos. Now, the Maril, the Bogad Avam, the Chai Adam, and others say it has to be something that's roy to eat. It shouldn't be something that it requires cooking. It should be something that is roy, that is fit to eat. For example, cooked meat or something similar to that. But of course, if you give them something that's not roy, if you give them enough time, then of course you're Yaitza in that case over there. For example, you send something frozen. That's also not going to be such a problem. The other thing that the Pri Megadim brings as well, and the Aruch HaShulchan paskins this way, and they should have mebuchach, is it should be something mechubadik. In other words, to give someone something that's not mechubad, that's not respectful for who he is, then that's not beseder. Now, it could be even a simple roommate of yours, to give him, one wafer and a jelly bean, which we'll discuss in a minute if that's it. But that's not Shlach Monos. Come on, seriously. Monos means a portion. It means something chashav. To give a little bit of, you have to know who you're dealing with. Of course, when you give your roommates, that's one thing. When you give your Rosh Hashiva, that's something. But you have to give according to the respectful amount. Monos means something chashav, right? In halacha we find this many times, right? Shlach Monos. Monos is monos, something that's a din of a chashivas, and therefore says the Pri Megadim, the Aruch HaShulchan, that it has to be something respectful, something beseder, especially according to who you're giving it to. The Gemara famously brings down in Megillah, Tav Zayin, that they used to give their Rebbeim a half a cow and a keg of wine, right? That's what they used to show up to the Purim Suda. There's a chashava, half a, can you imagine all the steaks you can get from that, all the wine, kenai nahora, unbelievable. Now, very important, it has to be monos. Monos means portions. That means you cannot give him one piece of chicken. You give two pieces of chicken. You can't give one slice of bread, you've got to give two slices of bread. You know with me? Right? Simple. Right? It's got to be two monos. It's very, very important. It could be two of the same food. Right? You can give two pieces of steak. That's Shlach Monos. You can give two pieces of chicken. You can give two apples. That's not a problem. The Velt says it has to be two brachas. I don't know. I never found the book for that. Sorry. So it does not have to be two brachas. You can give two biscuits. You can give two portions of chicken, or whatever it may be. There is no problem with that whatsoever. However, I will mention to you that the Aruch HaShulchan, which many of the Gedolei Poskim paskin like Halach L'Maisa, is that it should be two different tasting foods, not the same food. In other words, don't give him two pieces of the same food, right? It doesn't have to be two brachas. It can be all shahakol, all mazonos, but it should be two different tasting foods. And that's the psak of the Aruch HaShulchan, and that's the psak of the Tzitz Eliezer, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky Zatzal, and others as well, that held it should be two portions of different tasting foods. Okay? Now, what is a drink? Is a drink really considered to be a mana? Is it a portion? So the poskim say absolutely. However, mineral water or even sparkling water, Rabbi Yashiv held, was not considered to be a mana. To give someone, for example, a piece of chicken and a bottle of water, that's not considered to be a mana, and that's not good enough because it's got no din chashivas of a mana in that case. What about many small items? Let's say, for example, you give someone a bag of jelly beans. Right? What's the din over there? So there the poskim say that since each one is not chashav b'fnei atzmai, you give it, you eat it as a portion, therefore the whole amount of jelly beans is one portion. So then give him another type of candy or something else like that. But the whole portion of jelly beans would consider to be one mana in that case, or anything similar to that, right? I don't know, let's say for example you give, 15 meatballs. it's not really two monos, because each meatball is not a mona. It's not something you give or eat by itself. So, a piece of chicken, yeah, a piece of meat, yeah, challah, something, but not something very small that has to be mistarif with other things over there. Interesting shaila is that I asked some of the gedolim. I asked for Bazil, for example, the following shaila. Let's say, for example, you give, and this is a very negative for a bochum yeshiva, you give a bochum yeshiva cereal and milk. So you take a bowl, you pour cereal, and you pour milk in there. And you give it to him, here you go, guy. Shlachmanis, no, milk and cereal, what's the problem? One is a shackle and one is a mazonis, theoretically, right? Obviously the shaila ikav. So Bazil told me no, that's called one mana. It's called one mana. Why? That's how you eat cereal. How do you eat cereal? You eat cereal by having milk inside it. That the whole reason you put the milk in is so you can eat the cereal. Therefore it's not considered to be two different manas in that case, right? I asked him the same shaila. I said, imagine if you give someone a Memphis sandwich for shlachmanis. What would be the din? You make a schnitzel sandwich. Right, you give a schnitzel in a roll. Shlachmanis, yes or no? Two minimum, one. What do you think? 100%. Why? Oh, very nice. So Brazil told me the same thing. That's called tumana. You put the schnitzel in the roll, Beseda, but the mice, it's two things. It's a roll and it's a schnitzel. And therefore, it's the same thing, I guess, with deli. A deli sandwich you give someone, for example. That will be the same idea over there. Interesting shaila. What happens if you give someone meat and hard cheese? A piece of meat and a piece of hard cheese. So now he's stuck, right? So I guess maybe it depends what you give it to him. If you give it to him in the morning, maybe it could be yaitza. But if you get to him right before shkia, he has to wait 6 hours between the meat or 6 hours between the hard cheese. The mele he's not shag to eat both of them. All right, sorachin on that shaila. What about bread and hummus? What if you give a piece of bread and a container of hummus? So here the poskim say that's all considered to be one min. It's like bread and butter. Again, one helps the other. It's like the cereal and the milk. No shaila whatsoever in that case. Now, giving to a child, many poskim hold that you're yaitza, because a cotton is also re'ehu. There are poskim, the kavachaim, amongst them hold that you're not yaitza with a child, you've got to give to an adult. There's a shaila, Ritzi Pesach Frank has a shaila, Mikroi Kodesh, if you're yaitza shlachmanis, if you give to your Rebbe. What's the shaila? The Megillah says, Ish l're'ehu. Your Rebbe's not your friend. Very good. So the Meiser of Frank Zatzel, and it's also put down in the Marsham, paskins this way that you are Yaitza when you give Shlachmanis to Rebbe. You can all breathe a sigh of relief. Baruch Hashem, I'm Yaitza Shlachmanis that I get to Rebbe, even though he's not really Re'ehu, but Lamaisa. I remember asking Rabbi Zil Orbach one time about a Rebbe and a Talmud sitting next to each other. So there's a halacha that if one person's, right, we know this from the Gemara in Chulin, Shulchan Aruch, and Yodei Sim Peches, that Lamaisa there's a halacha that if a person's eating meat and a person's eating meat, milk, you can't sit next to each other. Why? There's a gzeira you're going to come to take from one another. So I asked the shaila, what happens? You got a Rebbe and a Talmud who would dare to take from their Rebbe's plate? Would you dare to do such a thing? Azar pachad. You sit next to a Rebbe when you eat lunch. Azar pachad. Hello? No one knows what I'm talking about. Which generation are we? Anyway, so he told me, Eina Chanami, the Talmud would never dream of taking from the Rebbe. Oh, but the Rebbe from the Talmud, Davada. So Mela, it's Asa. There's a Yad of Rom in that in your day also like that. Anyway, upon him, let's move on weiter. Moshe Steinbach, by the way, has a tshuva in Tshuvas on Hogos Chelik Gimel Simon Reish Lamed Vov that he paskins that if you give to him a Chal Shabbos, you're not Yaitze Mitzvah Shlachmanis because he's not Reyeyu. He's not Reyeyu. Not Ma'aseh Achicha. We saw this at the beginning of Ribbis. Very good. There are certain halachas like this. If he's not Achicha, it doesn't do Ma'aseh Achicha. Could be he's not Yaitze, a certain thing in that case. Let's move on. Rav Moshe has a tremendous chiddush. Rav Moshe has a huge chiddush. You walk over to a guy that you don't even know. Are you Yaitze Shlachmanis when you give it to him? He says you're not Yaitze. Because you might say you're not doing anything. It's not Marba Reis in that case. Okay, unless you're being Marba, Kiddush Hashem and whatever, all these sorts of things. Let's move on, Rabbi. So there's a lot more to do. How do you give the Shlachmanis? So there is a very, very famous Ben Ish Chai in Torah Lishma, where the Ben Ish Chai writes, when you give Shlachmanis, make sure you don't give it in one utensil. Don't put it in a basket, or in a tray, or in a plate. Why not? Because we know, for example, in the Mishnah Masechtas Challah, that if you have two things of challah that are put in one sal, in one basket, then mitztaref, it's considered to be one dough. And then you have to have separate challah if it's the right shit, right? So, for more details, look at the Pocket Halacha series on our Farshas Challah. But al kaponim, there's a din of tzir of sal. So says the Ben Ish Chai, there's a din of tzir of sal b'shlachmanis, which means what? That means if you take two manos, two portions, you put it on one plate, one bowl, one tray, one basket, whatever it may be, you've given one, you haven't given two. So you're not yaitza. As I pass in the Ben Ish Chai Lemaisa, all the Paiskim from Moshe to the Shevet HaLevi, the Chuvas Van Hoggers, the Tzitz Eliezer, all are chaylik on this, and they hold that you are Vada 100% Yaitza. Another thing a person has to be makbid on, by the way, especially here in Eretz Yisrael, is to give Mishlach Manos on the same day that you yourself are Yaitza. In other words, you can't give it to someone who lives in Beit Shemesh or in whatever it may be, or Beitar, or whatever, because they keep a different day, and therefore you can give them. Of course, you can give them because it's nice to give them. But al shachmonis, if you're being yoitza, you got to make sure you give it on the very same day. In that case, let's move on. Rabbi Sai, what time do we have? Gavaldi, we have a few more minutes. Okay, so that pretty much finishes off the halachos of Mishlach Manos. I just want to give you a Seidat Dvarim of how much left we still have to do. Right? I want to discuss now a little bit of the Sudas Purim. Tomorrow we're going to be going into the halachos of getting drunk, davening when you're drunk, damaging when you're drunk, and all these sorts of things. And the next day, Mitzvah Hashem, we're going to go through the shalas of a Purim Mishulush and how we deal with an Erev Shabbos, which is negate in most places outside Yerushalayim as well. So the very first thing we have to mention when we talk about the Sudas, the Ramah and Simon Tov Shadi, when he brings down that it's tough for a person to learn a little bit before the Suda of Purim. And the reason for that is because the Megillah tells us, La Yehudim Oisa Oira, Zutayra. And therefore that's why we learn a bissel before the Suda. We already mentioned, if you remember, the Heilige Chasam Sofer, that says if a person learns between Megillah Aleph to Megillah Beis, meaning night to day, the Muftuch Lusha Ben Olam Haba, so it's kedai to learn then as well, but it's also kedai to learn before the Suda, especially as it's Shloshim Yom Kodim HaChag. Which Chag? Very good. Which means many people start Hilchos Pesach on Purim, right? It's mamash. It's halacha, by the way. Right? There's a halacha that you're meant to learn the Yom Tov Shloshim Yom Kodim HaChag. In fact, by Pesach, actually, you can learn it. You start a little bit earlier in that case. Now, we don't make a bracha on the Suda. Why do we not make a bracha on the Suda? The reason is because it looks like you're doing it because the Suda is. Right, because a person can only make a bracha if he's doing it for the mitzvah, and he was doing it for other reasons as well. This man to make the Suda, by the way, if you look in the Rashash, in the Siddur HaRashash, he brings down that the Alpi Kabbalah, the Ikar Zman for the Suda is actually when? Straight after Shachris. That is the Ikar Zman for the Suda straight after Shachris, as I stated in the Siddur HaRashash. Lemaisa, generally what we do is like the Mishnah Berurah says, and we make it after Mincha. We daven Mincha first, and then we start the Suda, because you want to have a roiv of the Suda by Yom. There's no point starting a few minutes before Nacht and then continuing in the night, which is very nice, but the Ikar Suda, that the Mishnah Berurah says roiv has Suda, has to be before Nacht, and then you can continue as much as you want, right? You can have a roiv of the Suda before Nacht in that case. L'chatchila, you're meant to be washing, as I stated in the Levush, you're meant to have bread. In fact, the Rosh and the Meiri in Beitza, and as I paskin l'maisa the Aruch HaShulchan, you're not yoitza if you did not wash. If you do not wash and have bread, according to them, you're not yoitza. The Baruch Yosef, the Magen Avraham, the Shari Tshuva held that you are yoitza with that bread, but many hold that you have to wash, and that's what we generally do, and that's the minhag in most places in Klal Yisrael. What about fleish? Sure, Moshe has a tshuva, and he says that it's enough to have chicken for the Suda. You do not have to have fleish basa behema. But the Leket Yosha, Talmud of the Trumas Hadashan, says chicken is not good enough. You actually have to have that meat. And Ramesh Shtomach in Moedim Vazmanim Chelik Beis and Mekuf Tzadi brings down that a other person should have meat in that case. And the Rambam famously in Megillah, in Perik Beis, Halacha Tezvav, says you have to have a nice Suda and a mitzvah to eat meat, as Oishteit Heilig Chasam Sofer in Chulin Pei Beis. And therefore that's what it is over there. In fact, this was a shaila that somebody asked me, I think I mentioned this to you, the Shulchan Aruch Tovish Sarivor brings down that even an oval is allowed to eat meat on Purim Suda without any problem whatsoever. Now, women do not get drunk. We'll discuss getting drunk tomorrow, obviously. In Shevet HaLevi Cheli Gud Semin Yud Chesi brings this Moed Vazman and Cheli Beis Mekuf Tzadi as well. But the Stipler was known to tell his wife to drink something small that covered Hayyim. But of course, women do not get drunk. That is not negayed to anyone. Children also, Moshe Sternberg and Moed Vazman and Paskins are part of from getting drunk. There's also, by the way, no Zeichel Churban when it comes to Purim Suda. You go all out what it is, okay? There's also an Issa Malacha malacha on Purim, by the way. There's an issa malacha, in fact, that if a person works on Purim, eino roya simon bracha, right? In fact, most of them hold it's by day. Rabbi Lashiv held there's an issa malacha also by night as well. Obviously, anything that's the tzorech Purim, right? Malacha, things like going to work and things like that. For example, some of the poskim hold that like ksiba, writing, is problematic. Shaving and haircuts, washing, all of these things, like cholamoid sort of things, those are going to be asa, unless it's obviously the tzorech hayontav, tzorech hayom, washing kids, dressing up, whatever it is, they got dirty the night before, it's okay. So we're finishing here. Tomorrow we're going to continue with the aside of many reasons and shitas of getting drunk, and all the different shitas of getting drunk and how we have to approach those shitas. Be'ez Hashem, I just want to end off with one last thing. The Heilige Shla Kudish, the Shla writes that you have to understand the day of Purim is Gemar Kabbalas HaTorah. Says the Shla Kodesh, a person, right, Hadur Kiblu B'Meach HaShveirosh, they will makabel the Torah again. The day of Purim is such a holy day, it's such a chosh of a day. A person can make his Kabbalah to be Mischadish, again, the holy side of Torah on the day of Purim. A person has to use the day of Purim. Every moment of Purim is choshev, and B'siyata D'Shmaya, if we use the day of Purim, be a Gavaldiga day. Tomorrow, B'siyata D'Shmaya, we're going to go through the different shitas of getting drunk and how to do it in a practical way with some tips on not getting hangover. Hatzlacha Rabbah.